So I'm now going to walk you through some examples. This one was presented at the annual convention for the Society for Personality and Social Psychology, and it's fairly representative of what you would expect from a poster. So notice this kind of 3-column layout that it's got. So there's a column here, a column here, and a column here. That's really, really common among posters. Now, if you look over here, first of all, you can see there's a context. So that's that introduction section. It tells you basically the background to why they're running this study. So you can see here that they've referenced recent literature, and you can see here that they've also explicitly stated their research question. They've then got the method section where they quite clearly say that this is 2 groups of participants, control group and experimental group. So we know it was an experiment. They say what questionnaires that they've used. They explain the tasks that they had to do. And they've also said who's taken part. So they've said that there's n equals 24. That means that there's 24 participants in each group. You can also see down here that there's a really nice little kind of graphical representation of the way that they ran their study. So they've given a textual explanation here, and then they've also represented it with the actual images that they were using in the study. And that just really, really helps for people to just visualize what you're talking about when you list off what you did. Next comes the results. So you can see here, again, they've listed out all of the statistics that were relevant, but they've also included a graph to help people visualize what those statistics actually mean. And along with the statistics, they've also got a kind of plain text explanation. So they've said here, although the MR did not significantly change after the exposition to the neutral faces, exposition to trustworthy faces increased the MR's trustworthiness in high prejudice subgroup, but decreased it in low prejudice subgroup. So that sounds like a lot of words that maybe don't really make any sense on the surface. But if you go back and read back here, things like MR will be defined, things like high prejudice and low prejudice will be defined. So you know exactly where to reference if you're kind of lost. So for example, we can see that down here, they've explained what all of those acronyms mean. They've also got a discussion section. So that's kind of explaining what their results actually mean. And there's also what next. So that's the kind of directions for research that we can take after this. And then also down here are the references. And remember I said that every poster has got to have all of the logos for the people that supported the study. Well, that's all of this down here. Here is another example of a poster. So this one has 4 columns, but you can see it follows roughly the same kind of pattern. So again, we've got the background, the methods, results, discussion, and references. You can see here that they've used boxes and table and graphs to explain things in a way that makes a bit more intuitive sense. And again, that's really, really common. That's something that you want to do if you're talking to somebody in a really busy room about what your research is. You need to just make it really, really clear and they know exactly where to look. And things like this table, you may feel completely overwhelmed by this table, but by the end of a psychology degree, and definitely by the end of a kind of research period like the researchers would have, like you will know exactly what that means. Same with the graphs, same with all of the kind of like jargony words. You will often see that there is like bits of jargon on posters, and it's just a case of you're talking to other experts, so they know what you mean. Now, something that's really good about this is that it shows the kind of author date citation format that we use a lot in psychology. So you can see here, they're making a statement. So previous research has established a robust association between pathogen disgust and reactive obsessions, particularly contamination concerns. And then they've got names and dates. So Moretz and McKay, 2008, Olatunji et al., 2007. And those names in the text match up to the references down here. Now, these are absolutely tiny, so you probably can't see them, but they do match up. You can also see here that the poster is matching the university's colours, which is quite cute. The good thing about posters is that you can be a bit creative with them. So you need to tick off all of the requirements of a poster, but if your poster is conveying the right information, then you can kind of be free with how you actually design it. And as an example of this, I'm going to show you one of my own posters. So this is a poster that I presented at the International Society for Political Psychology conference. And you can see that I've maybe put a little bit more personality into the design of it. Like, despite the fact that it looks very, very different to the previous posters that we've seen, it still has all of the things you would expect. The header with the logo, introduction, methodology, results, conclusion, references. It still is all there, but you can see I've kind of added in these little bits of clip art. My method was not very easy to represent visually, so I thought I would put in these pictures to kind of make it pop out a bit more. And also because my research is about diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in like tech and science, and a lot of the time in training materials about that kind of stuff, you see this kind of cringe clip art, and so I kind of wanted to reference that in my poster. But you know what? Although it's not conventional compared to the previous 2, it was quite well received. People liked it. So the way that I've laid this out is up here, I've kind of put a headline almost. I've got the logo, the full title of the poster, and then the people involved. So there's me and there's my supervisor and where we are based. You can see that there's a reference to who's funded the project, and there's also my email address. Moving down here to the introduction section, you can see that there's a bit of background. I referenced both research and also news articles. So you can see here that I've got examples including Jordan Peterson and James Damore. Those were things that happened in the media, they happened in the news, but real life examples are really good ways to show why your research is relevant. So if it's there and it works, put it in. Here is my research question. And then here is my method section. So you can see here there's the participants who took part in the study, how I recruited them. Here you can see there's a reference to the experimental manipulation. So there were 3 conditions in this experiment. People read one of 3 fake news articles, and we wanted to see how that would affect their endorsement of conspiracy theories. You can see here that I've also referenced the questionnaires that we also used. And the way that we measured conspiracy theories was using a list of items that people agreed or disagreed to. So I've put an example of that slap bang in the middle here. What you can't see is that a lot of poster presentations, your board will actually be like really, really big, way bigger than your poster is. And so I actually had another board which had all of my articles and also the full questionnaire printed out so that people could have a real look at them if they wanted to. Next is the results section. So you can see down here, once again, there's the statistics, and then there's also a kind of plain text explanation for what that means. And there's also a graph to visually represent what happened in my experimental manipulation. As you can see, the lines are all roughly the same, which means nothing happened. Again, just a feature of science. Sometimes you don't find the thing you're expecting. Down here, there's the conclusions. So I talked a bit there about what the findings mean and how that might apply to the real world. And there's the references. Now, I said that this one's a little bit more adventurous. It's still fairly bog standard though, right? The only thing that makes it different is that it's got a kind of cutesy color scheme and the cringe clip art. But some people get really, really inventive with their posters. And if you're good at graphic design or illustration, then you can make the most of those skills. So this is a poster by a researcher called Nicholas Wu, who makes absolutely gorgeous posters. You can see here, like, way better graphic design skills than I have. You know, there's a really strong emphasis on visuals, right? Making it look nice, but also it still conveys all of the information. Introduction, methods, results, conclusion. And then there's all the acknowledgements and the logos. And, you know, this isn't a psychology poster, this is biology, which maybe is a little bit easier to kind of visually represent. But the point still stands for psychology. If you can include your own drawings, for example, or if you can find some way to make a visual the kind of centerpiece of your poster, that's going to draw in people. It's going to make them interested. Because when you're walking through those poster halls, you see so many of those 3-column, 4-column blocky posters over and over and over again. Normally they're like white and grey. Maybe they'll have a bit of colour in them that matches the logo, but for the most part, they're fairly standard. Having a poster like this makes people interested. It's different, and it's a really great way of combining science with art. If you've got those skills, absolutely use them. Here's another example. If all you can do is draw on a piece of paper and you're good at it, well then why not do it? This is a really, really effective poster. Again, it's got all of the bits that you would expect. Introduction, methods, data, so that's the results, conclusions and caveats and future directions, that's all the discussion section, and the references, the acknowledgements, the logos, it's all there. But this is all hand drawn, aside from a few graphs. And something like this is also really easy to achieve if you've got, for example, a tablet, like a Samsung tablet or an iPad, something like that you can draw on. You can do something like this, and you know that this grabbed people from across the room. So if you've got the skills and you want to be adventurous, do it. I'm not amazing at that kind of stuff, so I just used a website called Canva, which you can see here. And it's basically like a point and click graphic designer. So everything in here, they're all graphics that you can use and recolor as you wish. And you can add in your text, add in your graphs, whatever. So you can see here, like this is all literally just stuff that I can move around and just put wherever fits. So you don't need to have like great skills in this kind of stuff to be able to make these kinds of nice looking posters. There are free and accessible software options out there to help you do it. That's everything from me. I hope it's been helpful, and I really hope that you can apply some of these tips to your own posters.